Today has been pretty crazy in the crypto markets. I'd say a lot of it is because of the Coinbase versus SEC lawsuit. Some big things happened in that case. But at the same time, the crypto space is, it's getting pretty busy with regards to the Ripple lawsuit as well. Wait a minute. We'll talk about that in just a second. That looks pretty funny. But right now, three main things are happening. Ripple lawsuit, Coinbase lawsuit, and the allegations against Ethereum, they're ramping up. But more on that will be covered in this video. So guys, make sure you go ahead and press that like button and let me tell you guys a juicy story about everything that is happening right now, today, right now. First of all, if you're in the XP community, you know, all right, that there are haters in there. They're there. Look at Charles. He says, I post this to remind the XP crazies that the judge should have stayed in her lane by issuing rulings that let criminals go free because she exposed herself as a knucklehead when it comes to securities laws. This man is off his rocker. At first, I thought it was a joke, that it was a fake account of sorts, but it's really him. He's off his rocker. He's going a little bit crazy. I'm not sure if he's being paid to do so or what exactly is happening. But let's just say it like this. We already knew from the beginning that a lot of this is some sort of psyop. I still believe to the core of my heart that you see who did that, right? You still believe from the bottom of my heart that many do not want to see XRP shine because they understand the power. And there are two sides to it. One is these guys are trying to push it down because some higher power basically wants it to be shut down. On the opposite side, sometimes I'm thinking, what if these guys are industry plants? It's just Ripple's way of numbing down the hype a little bit. I know I'm taking this far, but I'm just thinking that these guys are being so overly negative. And even Gary Gensler, an industry plant, to push back against crypto so things don't spiral out of control in a bullish way just quite yet. And so they take these authoritative figures to play on one side saying, no, yeah, we're going to fight for crypto, yeah. And the opposite side is, no, crypto should be shut down. All the while keeping things as vague as possible. What if that's actually what's going on? I sometimes think about that. Anyway, we've got a lot to cover here. First of all, Senator Cynthia Lummis just filed an amicus brief supporting Coinbase's motion to dismiss the SEC lawsuit. Senator Lummis is a co-sponsor of the Lummis-Gillibrand crypto regulation bill. Senator Lummis' bill argues that Congress has not granted the SEC authority to regulate crypto assets. Defining the contours of crypto regulation in this country is a job for Congress and not the SEC. The SEC's claim that virtually all crypto assets are securities exceeds the SEC's authority, encroaches on Congress's lawmaking, and contravenes the separation of powers. And putting a new spin on the regulation by enforcement term, Senator Lummis declares that the SEC cannot legislate by enforcement. Excellent work by the lawyers at Jenner and Block. Well said, well done. Again, the main takeaway is the SEC cannot legislate the space by enforcement. Jeremy Hogan responds to that by saying, a senator filing an amicus brief stating that the SEC has exceeded its authority as given to it by the Senate. First, that is very compelling. Second, wow, that is my legal analysis because this is pretty big. And after that, things spiraled a bit out of control. SEC v. Coinbase big update. 6 security law scholars filed a devastating amicus brief in support of Coinbase. Law professor from Yale, University of Chicago, UCLA, Fordham, Boston University, and Widener filed amicus briefs last night that absolutely shred the SEC's investment contract theory. The amicus brief brilliantly traces the history of the meaning of investment contract before, during, and after passage of the Federal Securities Act in 1933. Here are the scholars' conclusions. Quote, by 1933, the state courts had converged around a standard for interpreting the term investment contract to mean a contractual arrangement that entitled an investor to a contractual share of the seller's later income, profits, or assets. After the Howey decision in 1946, the common thread for investment contract remains that an investor must be promised by virtue of his or her investment an ongoing contractual interest in the income, profits, or assets of the enterprise. Every investment contract identified by the Supreme Court involves a contractual undertaking to grant a surviving stake in the enterprise. The bottom line here being, in my opinion, this amicus brief delivers the coup de grace to the SEC's argument that crypto tokens trading on secondary markets are investment contracts. And this obviously also, ladies and gentlemen, refers back to the Ripple case, where the SEC is right now trying to basically take that back. But all of these scholars supporting Coinbase are also, in some way, shape, or form, supporting Ripple. Now, again, we can start debating the details here, because David Barrera, he's a guy that's against Ripple, but he's for the SEC in most of these parts, basically. He's having a little discussion with David Schwartz. But I'd say the idea is pretty clear. There's a lot more support for Coinbase than for the SEC. And a lot of these guys are also on the line that the SEC is overstepping and they should be led back into line, like dogs, you know? Anyway, I've been following this all quite closely. Even the Chamber of Digital Commerce said, we're stepping in. We filed an amicus curiae brief in the SEC v. Coinbase case. Our goal, to end the SEC's attempt to regulate the digital asset industry without legislative authority. Why it matters? Enforcement is not enough. While Congress works on solutions, the SEC's aggressive approach stifles innovation. Fair regulations can open opportunities for economic growth, job creation, and financial inclusion. What we argue, we discuss that Congress has not granted the SEC authority to the SEC, has not granted authority to the SEC to regulate all digital assets as securities. The SEC's regulation by enforcement actions raises constitutional concerns, putting the U.S.'s digital asset industry and its stakeholders at risk. The Chamber of Digital Commerce would like to thank McDermott Law and our members for helping us prepare this essential brief, and you can read more about it if you want to. And again, like we saw quite recently here as well, the guys over at Gemini, by listing XRP the moment that the SEC went for a appeal, and with their statements quite recently against Gary Gensler and for XRP, we're starting to see the tides turning. And I think right now it's starting to show that the SEC took too much onto their plate. Questions are being brought up about Ethereum. I mean, take a look at this tweet. Vitalik literally says right here that, hey, the guys over at Novogratz, they literally bought 500,000 Ethereum from the Ethereum Foundation as an investment. So obviously that was an investment contract. And so that was an offer of security in any way, shape, or form you'd like to see it. But they're still denying that for some reason. They're still ignoring it, which is peculiar. I don't mind because I like Ethereum, but it's interesting they're ignoring it. But there's more and more pressure being put on top of that right now. Like, why are they also against that? I mean, we all saw the decision in the Sam Bankman-Fried case. He's going back to jail today or yesterday. Apparently, also the Crypto Council, Paradigm, and A16Z all filed in the Coinbase versus SEC lawsuit as well. I couldn't find the exact briefs, but you can see right there in case you missed it. All these guys also joined in on the game. And I'm thinking Ripple should also be one of the guys to go ahead and file one of those briefs, right? A little side note, this is fake. If you're seeing these giveaways right here, this is scam. Be careful. We can go on more. Paul Gribble from Coinbase is saying, I've never understood the logic that seeking advice to comply with the law is proof of an intent to break the law. Sometimes, maybe most times, it's actually the opposite, which again is a jab at the SEC's approach to things by saying, hey, if you try to come on in and ask us questions, it meant you're trying to be a crook, so we got to go after you. And John elaborates on that by saying that the SEC basically doesn't want people to go through it the right way, because if you do, they see it as a bad deed because you're trying to cheat people. And again, stating facts that the way the SEC is doing things is not the best way, because it deters people from working together with them, as every single time you do so, it turns out worse. And again, the SEC sees every single one of these actions as a victory, when in reality, all of us in the community see it as the biggest shit show of the century. You know, every single one of these is a jab at your freedom, a jab at your economic freedom, from the perspective of they're trying to hurt your money, they're trying to hurt your pockets. And I really don't understand anybody that's on their side unless you're a really big crypto hater. And that's probably because you're above the age of 75. Because again, if we start really putting up the numbers, every single time there's been a major scam of sorts, the SEC was too late. But now that we're talking about real proper companies, oh, the SEC is quick to regulate them, huh? Well, not really. I mean, they still take years, meaning if people are hurt, it'd still be too late. And as I said before, let's say the SEC were to win in some of these cases. Where does the money go? Does it go to the people? No. Because in the Ripple case, I mean, let's say the SEC did win their $1.3 billion suit. Well, the XP price would have gone to zero, and the damages would have been, $25 billion worth. So where exactly does the SEC take that as a victory for the U.S. investors, I think? Now, a counter argument is that, okay, if you're trying to fight a Ponzi scheme, people are going to get hurt regardless. And sometimes it's best to just poke the hole in quicker. But that's not what we're talking about here. Nobody alleged fraud, nobody alleged wrongdoing, except for the fact that these were unregistered some things. But not that they are basically bad in and of itself, just not properly registered. So at the end of the day, it's all about a little formality, not about actual fraud or anything. So it's not the same example. It's just the SEC trying to devastate people's money and give it to institutions that know how to, well, move it quicker. Because again, these institutions, they make massive profits whenever the SEC does stuff because they know how to time the market. Us, the retail, we don't. And again, they keep saying all this as, hey, look at this, we've won, we've done good. But nobody likes them. Again, guys, this whole debacle with the crypto industry and the regulators, it's all one big shit show. And for the most part, I think it's a corrupt piece of garbage. And I think a lot of you guys agree with me. I mean, take a look at PayPal. We've talked about this already, but if you really start diving into it all, it's so strange the way they approach these things. It sometimes makes me think maybe the SEC is doing all this stuff on purpose. As I said earlier in the video, maybe it's all one big scheme. I mean, Bruce, a little while ago, went actually to DC to call for resignation of Chairman Gary Gensler, which is kind of funny. At least some people are trying out there, which I like. And indeed, I sometimes think back about his connections to Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried as well. But as I said, today was a pretty interesting day with all this Coinbase news, with all this support. And hopefully, just hopefully, we wake up tomorrow with the SEC disbanded, but I don't think tomorrow's going to be that day. But let's see progress, because now even senators are stepping up, so things are starting to get serious. The SEC is being put back into line like motherfucking dogs, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it all the way through. But guys, that was about it. Make sure you put the notification bell so you don't ever miss out on a crucial update, and I'll see you guys again in another crypto video tomorrow.